And we are back to the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, we are going to be looking at some of the comments that Stephen A. Smith had to make about Ben Simmons, as well as, Jimmy Butler's agent responding back towards the comments that Stephen A. made about Ben Simmons. Now, one of the things that, makes Stephen A. Obviously, that's not Stephen A. Smith or Ben Simmons. There we go. Obviously, someone as, with the big name as Stephen A. Smith, it doesn't really matter what he says on the internet. Most of the people are either going to find him funny, most people are going to find memes to make about him in the future, and it's really difficult to cancel somebody that's as popular and as recognizable as Stephen A. Right? Like, people like listening to him talk, people like listening to his opinions, and sometimes his opinions are a little bit extreme. Like, for example, what he had to say about Ben Simmons. Now, he remarked on I believe it was his podcast, he said that Ben Simmons is lucky he's not in prison for theft. And his choice of Miami as a rehab site showed he doesn't love the game. Now, that's what Stephen A. Smith said over on his podcast, right? Or on a podcast, I should say. It was called the OG Show. So yeah, it was a podcast, right? Now, Jimmy Butler's agent also decided to clap back at this. Now, the issue started when the analyst blasted Ben Simmons for his choice of rehab location in Miami. On top of it, he also claimed that the Nets star should be in prison for theft, a not-so-subtle jab at Simmons' lack of time on the court, contrasting his $177 million contract, right? Now, as a Nets fan, I'm not going to give my opinions on what I think about this comment because, I personally think it's egregious to say something like that, on air and on a podcast, but I'm not going to say that he's not insane for saying this because Ben Simmons doesn't play a game. He doesn't. He does not like playing. I don't know what it is, but ever since that one little playoff series, he does not play games. It's like, why? You are 6'10". You weigh 200 and something pounds of pure muscle, and you don't play. Why? 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 It's not like, it's not like he's cripplingly injured like T-Mac or something like that. And no disrespect to T-Mac whatsoever, but like T-Mac was plagued with a lot of injuries. He had a lot of back injuries and he had a lot of ankle injuries, and that really prevented him from being a very talented player in the NBA. But it's not like he was faking those injuries or things of that nature. It's not like he was purposely sitting out in, certain games where like, he could legitimately play in, right? He was one of those players where it was like, you have to fight in order to keep him off of the court. And that was the mentality that he showed. But Ben Simmons, on the other hand, let's face it. I mean, at this point, it's starting to get ridiculous. Like, before, you could make the argument, oh, it was back spasms and this and that. But now it just seems ridiculous, just the amount of games that he's sitting out. Because it's like, I remember this one point where in the postseason, against the Boston Celtics, it was regarded as, before Game 4, everyone thought that Ben Simmons was going to play. It was highly likely that Ben Simmons was going to suit up for Game 4. Highly likely, highly likely, right? But then, the second Game 4, the day of Game 4 came, the second that day came, all of a sudden, a report comes in saying that Ben Simmons is not suiting up, Ben Simmons is not eligible, Ben Simmons is this, that, and the other. Now, it completely contradicted all of the reports before that, where it was saying Ben Simmons would be eligible to play for Game 4, Ben Simmons is probably going to suit up for Game 4. All of the sources that said Ben Simmons was going to play in Game 4, all of a sudden, it just flipped on its head and said Ben Simmons is not eligible to play for Game 4 for whatever reason. I don't even remember what the reason was, because to me, it just felt like he was scared. Like, he is scared. It doesn't make any sense to me how someone who is 6'10" is scared to pick up and dribble a basketball. It doesn't. And, the comments of highway robbery, as Stephen A. would like to call it, I wouldn't use those words, obviously. But, and you know what, I'm not even going to, talk about those comments in general, really. Now, Jimmy Butler's agent, because, Ben Simmons, he has the same butler. He has the same butler. He has the same agent as Jimmy Butler. Now, he said, he made responses, and he had some response to say about these claims. And he said, quite frankly, I think Stephen A. is an idiot, and I only wish he still had his TV show so I could sit in his audience and voice my opinion to him while he attempted to do this job. Alas, it got canceled, Butler's agent told Nets Daily. And Nets Daily reported this in a tweet. Ben Simmons, obviously, this is just the act of, your agent defending the player. But Ben Simmons has only played 57 games in the last 2 seasons. This is worse than Kyrie. And the injury, it keeps, being reported that injuries are plaguing his career. I don't see him getting injured. I don't see him hurt at all. And in the offseason, he's targeting a return to full fitness with a personal camp in Miami. This is the same guy that went on vacation because, he didn't want to play for the Sixers because he was sensitive. His feelings were hurt after he was scoring 0 points in the postseason. Yeah, you should feel hurt. You should feel bad. And it's I don't understand why he's not one of those players that's because if this was someone like Kobe, if this was someone like Michael Jordan, if this was someone like any sort of all-star caliber player, they would have taken that performance, they would have remembered that performance, and they would have worked hard to make sure that performance never happens again. But his response is nope, I'm just not going to play. I'm going to sit. I'm just not going to do anything. They don't need me, this, that, and the other. It's annoying, and it's really I cannot stand players and athletes that have that diva mentality, because that's really what it is. And it's really sad, because he is 6'10". He is such a gifted player, and he just doesn't play. The biggest problem that I had with Kyrie when he was on the Nets was that he didn't want to play. And now there's another player on the team that doesn't want to play. Why? Now, the agency partner between, Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons is yet to start his off-season prep. The Heat forward instead opted for a tour in Europe. Jimmy Butler, that's Jimmy Butler that this article is talking about. Now, it's really I guess this is just a common thing for this man and his agents, or this man and his players, I guess you could say, just the rest of them just, leaving and going over to this place and that place just to, explore and do whatever it needs that they need to do to rehab. But that's really all that I have on the comments with Stephen A. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with his comments on Ben Simmons being lucky that he's not in prison for theft? Or do you think that the comments are a little bit extreme and you're just not a fan of Stephen A, right? But with that, we are out of time for this 5th segment, and that is the end of the podcast. So thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. And as usual, please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is gsmcspodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. Have a wonderful day, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go.